Okay. Um, to start off with, I realize that this particular game is not conducive to Let's Plays. It's extremely boring. Um, I remember when TTV decided to do a playthrough of this, and even though they had a cast that was somewhat witty and have ability to make anything entertaining in themselves, even if the game is boring, despite that, the game was so boring that I couldn't really even watch it. I watched essentially none of that footage. um, so then, if it's so boring and it's so not conducive to Let's Playing, why am I even playing it and recording myself playing it? Well, I have this big long list of games I want to go through, and all of the old Bionicle games are on it, for no rational reason whatsoever. It's just because maybe I'm a completist and I want some complete collection of Let's Plays of them. And this just happens to be one of them. And I decided, well, I'll do it early, and I'll get it over with, and then it will be over with, and then I can put it out there when I'm not very popular, and then I won't have to put it out there if I am popular. By not very popular, while I'm recording this, I'm putting it on a channel that has 1 subscriber. Thank you to that person. But also, sorry to that person, because I'm going to upload this. Well, maybe they want to watch it, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't apologize for it, but I mean, I wouldn't watch it because I wouldn't watch it. Let's go. Yes. Okay, so not every Toa is created equal. This game is this, very progression-based RPG-like turn-based combat game. And there are items, and you have more of a, I probably have to explain this in the game, but you do more damage when you use weapons that are the same element as your character, because your character has more damage stats for its element. So, it's better, or you get better gameplay performance if you use a character for which in the game you're more likely to find an item of their element. And also, certain creatures of certain elements are weak and strong to other elements. And so you also get an advantage if you pick a character whose attack is something that the most powerful enemies in the game are weak to. So a very good choice is Holly, because there is a lot of good water weapons that you can pick up, a lot of good water attack armor that's available in the game, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken about this, fire is weak to water. And the most powerful enemies of the game tend to be fire enemies. So, if you want the best gameplay performance, you tend to pick Holly. I've beat the game as Holly, I've done it as New Peru, I've also done it as Jawler, and I don't remember if I did it as Matoro. I played a lot as Matoro, but I don't remember if I finished as Matoro. I don't think I've completed the game as Shuki or Kongu, but I haven't done so for a reason, and that is, well, they don't seem like very good characters to play as. So, we're going to optimize here for gameplay performance as opposed to adventure, and we're going to pick the highest performing character I can think of. I'll put my obnoxious screen name in here. If my screen game is not that anymore, well, it was when I recorded this. So this starts with a little quiz. So why are you here? Well, the correct answer is, I am here to help the Matoran. That's wrong. Canonically, they came to Voya Nui because Matoro told and said that that's where the Toa Nuva were supposed to go. And apparently, well, According to Jollar, they weren't back in time. Even though if you look at the chronology of the story, they would have only, when Jollar left to go search for the Toa-Nuva, they would have just arrived on Voya Nui. And Jollar basically underestimated the time it took to get to Voya Nui and come back. Now, it turns out that they truly were in trouble, but it doesn't really make any sense that at the time Jollar would think that they weren't back in enough time. So, it's kind of dumb. But anyway, you say this because this game isn't very canon. In fact, it's atrociously not canon. It's filth. Where you are. Well, somehow they knew they would get to Voya Nui when they... Somehow when they got to Voya Nui, they knew that was where they were, so... Do you know what it is that you are here to find? I seek the Mask of Life. Even though I said that I was there to help the Matoran, and... You're not really getting the Mask of Life specifically to help the Matoran on Voya Nui. You're doing it so that the Great Spirit Robot doesn't die, which according to a short story that Greg Farsty wrote that you can unlock by a code in the back of Bionicle Legends 8, Secrets of the Swamp. Wait, or is that one 9? I believe that one's 9. I got my numbers mixed up. For some reason, that causes catastrophes inside the robot that kill all the Matoran. So I guess technically, by seeking out the Mask of Life, they are helping the Matoran. Nevertheless, the Matoran of Voya Nui are outside the Great Spirit Robot, and so if the Great Spirit Robot were to die, they would not be harmed by that. Whatever. Why? It turns I believe that book, Secrets of the Swamp, came out before, and the short story of the Kingdom was written before the Great Spirit Robot reveal. And in order for that story to make sense, that the Matoran survived, even though Matanui died, by escaping onto the island of Matanui, requires the Great Spirit Robot to make sense. So that's interesting. Like, the first time I read it, I was like, what? This doesn't make any sense, because I wasn't smart enough to figure out the Great Spirit Robot thing before it was revealed. There's a lot of text here. I'm not going to read the text aloud, because if I read all the text aloud in this game, that would just be a lot of really boring reading. So let's just go on. So you click this button to show your quests. Find some Ice Rahi. You have to defeat in battle 5 Ice Gothna and bring to Garen 5 ice metal pieces. I'm going to bring to Garen a whole lot more than 5 ice metal pieces, but anyway. Dig. Okay, so I'm going to systematically travel through this upper cape, which has no name. It's the Tame Cape. And defeat everything in that cape once, so that I collect every item in the cape that you can collect. At one time I thought that maybe this game had programmed in that depending on what level your character was, again, this is a very progressive game, and depending on where you were in the story, the items that certain Rahi would drop if you defeat them would change. But, my most recent playthrough of this, it seems that wasn't the case. You never got an item by defeating a Rahi that you previously defeated. I believe that this one, it doesn't actually give you any... Oh, whatever. It doesn't actually... give you an item until you get to a quest where it does. But I'll check. Oh, okay. We did get it. So you just take turns with this thing. and you dispatch it easily because you have way more health than it. So, as you get enough experience points from either completing quests or defeating Rahi, you advance from one level to the next. Every time you advance a level, you get a point down here under total, which you can apply to one of these three categories. And, yeah. Adding one of these points to one of these categories increases your health. Adding it to defense increases your health more than adding it to attack or technique does. And these change your statistics as to how much damage you do, or how little damage your opponent does to you. Each one of these actually increases all three a little bit, but it increases more the one you select. Now, I almost always really hard load on attack because, if you have a lot of defense, well, you don't do much damage to them and they don't do much damage to you. So the fight takes longer. If you have a lot of attack as opposed to a defense, they do a lot of damage to you, but you do a lot of damage to them. So whether you win or lose, the fight goes a lot faster. If I'm trying to make a Let's Play, I want fast fights. I don't want slow fights. Okay, so we got Greaves. Greaves increase how far you can move per turn. So previously I could move 4 increments per turn. Now I can move, well, previously 3, now I can move 4. Because this is a water thing, it increases how much damage I do using water weapons more so than increases the damage I do to other weapons. It turns out, though, that, say, a medium attack greave of stone would increase my damage if I'm using a stone weapon by 20 and everything else by 10. And increase the amount of movement points I have to 5. So, it doesn't matter what element the higher level greaves would be. You always want to pick the highest level greaves you have in your inventory. And then within that, pick the water. Within that, pick the element you want. I've heard that the background music for this was originally used in Bionicle the Game. Now, I've never played Bionicle the Game, nor actually watched any footage of gameplay of Bionicle the Game where the background music was audible, so can't confirm. That is on the list, though. You immediately start noticing that whoever developer developed this game, I have no idea. I didn't do any research before doing this, because I didn't really care about the meta of this game too much. Mixed up stone and earth, or mixed up the color coding of stone and earth, which you would think would be pretty common, unless you were paid by LEGO to produce a game. Then maybe you could get it right. So you'll notice every time I use my elemental power, I use 6 AP. So I start with 10 AP, and then I use this, and I go down to 4 AP. So each weapon has an AP. Let's see how much the Zamor Sphere launcher has. It also uses 6. So, yeah, there's no advantage over using that as opposed to the elemental power because it uses less damage and you can still use it the same amount of times per turn. At this point. More attack, please. Yeah, I warned you that this was boring. Like, oh, well, why are you combing through this systematically and defeating every single Rahi? Like, why would you do that? Well, one, that's just how I play the game. But two, I don't want to lose any fights in a Let's Play. And I don't want to cheat in a Let's Play. So I gotta make sure that I have, very high stats. Much more than average than the average player when going through this. If you go through this game not defeating any extra Rahi, only doing the minimum required to complete each quest, then you get into some fights later in the game where you have a tendency to lose. Or you have to use techniques, it's just techniques where you lose a fight, in total, but managed to defeat some of the Rahi during it. And I don't want to play like that. I also want, in the Let's Play, the collection of every item that you can collect for completeness. And a battle with everything you can battle for completeness. I'll try to separate the parts out. So, I believe I already did this part. At the beginning of each chapter that opens up a new area, I will do a segment where I defeat all the Rahi in that area. And then another segment where I do the quests, such that it's possible to skip, that's a much better weapon than the Zamor Sphere launcher, it's possible to skip the segments where I'm just cleaning out an area and just watch the ones where I do the quests. But those will be really boring anyway as well, so I don't know. It's just, there's nothing redeemable here. But because this is a prologue, and the prologue doesn't have very many quests, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to split it up. I don't even know if you could Twitch stream this. I guess you'd have to be funny and talk about things with your chat or something that, you know, would entertain people. Wait, did that give me something? No, just more of this stuff. Okay. It is a little bit more fun to play than to watch because of its progressive nature. It's one of those games where when you get to the end, you are orders of magnitude more powerful than you were at the beginning. Whatever, defense, fine. I was going to do technique, but I clicked too fast. Forgot the order. I don't need any defense to do this first part. These things' attacks are so weak it doesn't matter. Already dug that. I can't attack these things. Force these things to attack me while they're moving. Yes, you click on it and then it says that it attacked you. Toa never instigate fights, obviously. Yep, there's Garen, the Matoran who originally said, "You do not need to be a Toa to be a hero." And LEGO decided, you do have to be a Toa to be a hero. It's not really that bad that Garen said it, because Garen never became a Toa. But then Greg had to write Jollar say it. And he had to write Jollar say it even though he knew that Jollar had to be a Toa because he was a canister set that year. The protagonist of the story has to be a canister-sized set. And the hero is usually the main character, and so the main character has to be Toa-sized, the hero has to be Toa-sized, you have to be a Toa to be a hero. I am sorry. The biggest poster child for this idea that you don't have to be a Toa to be a hero was Takua. But then even Takua had to end up being a Toa. And then you hear that expression where Matoran are always singularly useless in the Bionicle story, and that's important. Even though the writers would keep trying to make it so that that wasn't the case. But the set people, the marketing, and, you know, the people that try to make money off the franchise made it that so that that was the case. It's nothing really intrinsic to Bionicle. It's not something that made Bionicle good or any sort. It's not something, a property that you would need to preserve. It's just a marketing. It's just like a set-making consequence. The same reason why Matoran are so much smaller than Toa. It's just because with Construction, you have to have sets. Well, LEGO always wants to make sets of multiple sizes and multiple price points for, you know, various reasons. Like they want it to be accessible to each person, but then they also want to create ways for people to spend more and more money. But if you're using Construction, there's a tendency for the size of the set to be determined by the size of the character. So if you want to make sets of different sizes, then you need to make characters of different sizes. That was really the only motivation for that. Something that people, for some reason, don't seem to understand. It wasn't to differentiate the heroes from the side characters. Now, so well it did anyway. I'm not so sure about that. The writers certainly didn't really want it to. Also, what's a Gothna? Okay, this thing's a little bit more powerful than the Gotham is. Doesn't really have much significance, though. Well, I guess it gave up. Okay, now I add technique. Okay. That doesn't matter. So you might be wondering what these shards do. Well, later on in the game, you can buy armor and weapons from Volta or Velika using shards. Now, this isn't really that useful because you only can buy weapons of certain weapons or armor of certain power or strength when you get to a certain place in the story of the game. And usually, you want armor or weapons that are more powerful than what's available from Volta or Velika at the time. So I hardly ever use that. Okay, attacker uses ice, but I'm using water, so that's not helpful. Be more helpful if I was playing as Matoro and I was using ice weapons, for which there have been none yet. There you go. Wait, did we get Garen's tools? No, we didn't. Okay, I have to go back and do that, Protodermis Burnak again, then, maybe. Great. That's annoying. Now, this might be the Elemental Stone of Burst. There might be nothing. Yeah, there's nothing here. Okay, that's for later. Sorry, goofed that one up. If you're too quick on the draw, then I'll give you that error message. Okay. Instinctively don't. You can click on these things and they will attack you, quote unquote, if they're far away from you. It's just I don't want to have to walk that far once this fight starts. It's probably going to line of sight me. Oh, it's not going to even do that. It's just going to go, not going to let me. Okay. That was hard to find. Where is it? Whatever, I'll draw it out. That was poor performance there. Okay, we can't fight this yet. We are not powerful enough yet. Yes, that's also on the list. Okay, now we can go back to Garen and actually finish this thing. To go down one, and 2 over. Okay. Okay, so doing it doesn't give you Garen's equipment until you defeat it after Garen gives you that quest, which means, and in this download version, the Rahi don't respawn. So in the original online version of this, after a certain period of time after you defeat each Rahi, it would respawn. In the download version, that feature doesn't work. So in order to get this thing to spawn again, I'm going to have to close and restart the game. So, close. Restart the game. Skip. Okay, let's see, did that work? Good. Continue. Let's look at the quest thing. Okay, the quest thing... Sometimes the quest thing doesn't work right after a reload, but it seemed to did this time. Cool. Done. Oh, I reloaded everything, so I have all these enemies back. Waste some time getting rid of them. After I'm through with the prologue, I'll pretty much stop bothering to, I'll just say kill Rahi in this area, because they only give you 40 experience points apiece, which starts to become a very small drop in the bucket. I overshot. Okay. Maybe you could have paused in there to read that. Okay. There's just so much text. The gameplay footage would just be way too long if I read the text. Now, what happens if you fight something with Garen on your tail? Well, Garen just kind of runs to a corner. Which is very un-Garen-like. If you could say Garen had a personality. Which he kind of didn't. But anyway. Yeah, gee whiz. Cares about Earth Gothna, because remember this thing has the elements mixed up. Quest. Talk to Garen. Okay. More attack. And... Are you ready? And here we go. I'm going to cut off this recording here. That's the prologue. And then start up the next recording with Chapter 1. But I'm not going to do any of the quests of Chapter 1 besides the first one. I'm just going to go through the new area that opened up and defeat every Rahi in that area. So to get off the screen, we hit skip, even though you're not really skipping anything, because even if you didn't click that, this would never go away. You have to click it eventually. So it should say continue, and then we'll continue.